Austin. How many of you have been here before? Okay, so everyone. Great, welcome back. So I want to start first with, everybody, will you just introduce who you are really quickly and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Doug Harbrecht. I'm a director of digital media for Kiplinger.com out of Washington, D.C.
Hi, I'm Christina McGuire. I'm from Condé Nast, and I oversee all of digital operations.
Hi, Dan Ryan with AccuWeather, Director of Business Development.
And Michael Silberman with New York Magazine, head up digital media for our company.
Okay, so the concept of the panel here is that we're going to talk about 5-year plans, which I want to just poll the audience. How many of you are with organizations that have a 5-year plan, or you know what your 5-year plan is? One gentleman right there. You, sir, are a seer. So let's talk about that. Anybody here, 5-year plan?
You know, I think everybody always has to do one, you know, whether it's for their board or their stakeholders, but the wild spins in what you do now and what happens even in 2 to 3 years is various across the board. So I don't think it's anything that we look at to be our North Star. We really make sure that we have a locked in 2 to 3 year plan.
I would just say, looking back 3 years ago, all right, that's as far as I'm willing to go forward. 3 years ago, we were getting 90% of our revenue from banner ads. Today, it's about 70, and I hope in 3 years it's around 50, 40, 50%. I'm happy to talk more about that as we go here.
So I think we kind of have a 1-year plan that fits into a 5 to 10 year evolution, I think it seems like, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit, but we have a digital media property that is heavily driven through advertising, but we also have other services that we have licensing models for, and different business models, and so those are the parts that I think that continue to evolve.
So we don't have a 5-year plan, and I think if you look back at the last 5 years, you would say that it would have been a mistake to have made one. The business is changing too fast, and in fact, we, in the past couple of years, at least on the sort of product development side, have switched to looking at things on a quarter-by-quarter basis. So we don't even have a full year roadmap. I mean, yes, we do have a roadmap. We have a sort of series of things that we're trying to make consistent progress on, but we revisit that every single quarter and decide what is important in the business now. So we're actually trying to sort of up our pace of sort of innovation and evolution and ability to sort of shift where the market's headed, with still a sort of sense of the sort of North Star priorities that we're focused on, and the sort of big things that we're trying to accomplish.
Well, so let's go there. What are the North Star priorities?
For us, so one of our big priorities this year is revenue diversification, which is kind of one of the topics we have here. Another big priority is audience engagement. So some of the things that we were actually hearing from the Post-Up guys about sort of thinking about how do we think about our audience and get people to come back more often and engage more deeply with our brands. Those are probably the big ones. There's some others in there, like focus on mobile, but those are probably the ones that are sort of driving most of the decision making.
We have a North Star. Let me state it for you. At Kiplinger, we start with the expectation that readers will act upon what we say and benefit from doing so. It's been our North Star from the beginning. Most recently, if you were with the floods, the hurricanes, we had expert advice on how to file insurance claims, how to, what to watch out for with cars that have been flooded. With the Equifax fiasco, we were one of the first organizations to tell people don't sign up with Equifax and sign away your ability to litigate if your identity has been breached. So that's what we do. That's what Cooper Hefner's got nothing on us. We've been around for 97 years, Kiplinger, and we hope we're aiming for 100 years and beyond that. So that has been our expectation from the get-go. That is what we do. We know who we are, and we're trying to capitalize on it.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I would say revenue diversification as well. Really, in our data capabilities, we continue to invest there through what we're building as a first-party platform, and then layering on third-party offline transactions. Programmatic events and experiences are really sort of our North Star as well. It's what we do well, creative services. But I would also say that, we have a portfolio of 22 brands, and unfortunately, it's not an easy one-size-fits-all across all of those brands. We have very different strategies, whether it be consumer-led or brand-led, or really going into more of the experiences lane and not so much ad-supported, like a Teen Vogue that's highly political and really needs to grow their revenue streams in other ways. So, both from a audience and consumer end to a revenue end, we have sort of a wide array of areas that we're focused on.
Yeah, and so we have a large global audience of users that come to us every day and want to get their weather information. And so to surface the right content to them, we're using, we talked about it a little earlier, we're using AI, and we're using some of those things to deliver the relevant weather information to you, and lifestyle information and health information and things like that. So that's our main focus there, is our website and our mobile website. But we have other lines of business that still utilize the same data that we're producing every day, that are more business to business type services, and so growing those as well was also kind of a twofold approach for us.
So Doug, one of the things that we talked about that's been sort of one of these foundational ideas is that content is king. Is it still king?
Well, it's still, it's right there next to the throne with distribution.
It's royalty.
Right, it's royalty, right. But just briefly, I have a theory in watching what is happening now. We all played the monetization game. A lot of people in this room, I've been speaking to folks, played the monetization game. The idea of going out there and getting a visitor to come to your site and who may never return again, and the rise in programmatic, and now possibly the diminishment of programmatic, we really have to start focusing on who are our core audiences. By the same token, though, if you look at what is happening, you look at Disney now. Disney is going back to a distribution model. Disney is now, with all of its sports programming, with ESPN, they're going to start their own distribution model with a streaming service. They're getting away from cable television. They want to control the pipes. They're trying to get the pipes. If you've been reading the Rotten Tomatoes story, anybody here familiar with the Rotten Tomatoes story in Hollywood? Now, whenever anybody goes anywhere, either to Google, or if you go to Fandango to purchase a ticket, or you go to Google, or just about everywhere now, the rating of a movie is from Rotten Tomatoes. It's not from A.O. Scott of the New York Times. It's not from the Hollywood Reporter. It's not from the Los Angeles Times. It's from Rotten Tomatoes, and this has been sort of a beast. It's the Jurassic Park model for distribution, because Hollywood, after all, the movie industry owns Fandango, and yet what has emerged is, because of the ubiquitousness of Rotten Tomatoes, it has become the go-to for where people get a lot of their crowdsourced information. So there's kind of this weird, we're really in a weird period right now. We are focusing on trying to get quality information on as many platforms as possible, to reach as many affinity readers as possible for our brand. And that is getting tougher and tougher.
So you're looking for the right audience more than you're looking for a big audience.
Exactly.
What about you? Content still king? Is that the same strategy for you guys?
Yeah, so our content is essentially forecast information, and so our focus has always been on making that as most accurate and actionable data. So some of our data then gets turned into stories and articles and things like that. Most of our content is our weather data information. So it's always been a focus from day one for us.
I'm not sure what, as content companies, there would be other than content, right? I mean, on the other hand, if you look at the sort of digital duopoly and the sort of power of the audiences that they've been able to create and the audience data that they've been able to accumulate, the sort of power of content is under threat, and that there has certainly been a shift away from kind of content targeting towards audience targeting. So I'm not entirely sure. In our business, sure, we sell most of our inventory direct. There's still a tremendous demand for kind of content targeted advertising, and sort of high impact brand advertising. But if you look at the sort of business overall, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, content is key. We have some of the best content creators out there. I think it's making sure that it goes to the right audience and you put, data and analytics back in the hands of the people that are creating the content. So now we're on one CMS across our 22 brands, and we continuously make that smarter. So whenever our editors are looking at the kinds of things that they're going to write about, they can see what's doing well and see what their audiences are resonating against with specific verticals and specific pieces. That's something that's different for our editors. They never had to do that before. It was really based on personal preference and where they thought that their audience was going to consume the content. But I think no matter whether it's through distributed platforms or your O&O or social, you really need to make sure you're getting the right content to the right audiences on the right platforms, and I think that's the thing that continues to get more complex.
I dream, or I hope, that we're at an inflection point here. I come from the swamp, Washington, D.C. I come from the swamp. In a past life, I covered politics. And what has happened this year with fake news, the whole phenomenon of fake news, and how it is now so much out there, and everyone is talking about it. Perhaps we're at an inflection point here where everybody here on this stage will be able to benefit from people looking for quality, trusted content now. And our mission is to get them that quality, and by the same token, be profitable. I mean, I have the luxury of working for a company, a family-owned business, small family-owned business, that where the boss, he just really likes helping people. He wants us to be profitable, yeah, but we don't have to kill it. We just have to be profitable because he regards what we do as a public trust. It's a nice place to be. Are we at an inflection point? God, I hope so.
So let's pick up that thought on fake news. Are you guys seeing fake news, or is it an opportunity? Are you leaning into it? Are you hoping it's a passing fad? How do you guys look at it from your vantage point as a phenomenon?
I think we definitely leaned in on the sales side. It was a marketing tool for us, definitely. The content that we create goes through many different layers of fact checking and has a ton of weight that goes with it. So it's something that we can definitely go up against the platforms and digital media companies that are up against fake news and having to figure out how to gate that. So it's something that we definitely leaned into whenever, and it will continue to be a prominent thing because of user-generated content and how that has to get filtered before it's surfaced to the public.
I guess for us, we're either right or we're wrong. So we kind of don't have the problem with the fake news. You're either, like if yesterday if you went to ACL and it rained and we told you it didn't, you would have been upset and told us that we were wrong. So we're checked every day on whether we're right or wrong. So I don't think we have to deal with it that much.
Michael, how do you guys look at it?
We just do what we do, same as Condé Nast. We have reporters, we have fact checkers, we spend a lot of time making sure we get stories right. We're careful about not re-reporting other people's information that we're not able to verify ourselves. And so, we're just kind of out there slugging away at it.
But there's a question in there, right? Like, are you getting credit for that? You know, do you feel like Condé gets credit for having fact checkers?
Yeah,
Is that accruing?
There's a huge cost that comes with it, and I think that the way that content was published 10 years ago is very different than today. You need to get content out much quicker at a much cheaper cost, and we're frankly looking at that right now. What the value is of that to the consumer, and whether 4 fact check layers need to actually be done or one's sufficient in today's marketplace.
Any early thoughts on that? I mean, what's the analysis going to be like? I mean, how do you approach that question?
It's really about, again, whether it's through the CMS with editors or making sure that, they're up against a KPI of engagement. It's making sure that their work is, really looked at through the lens of data and us performing, whether it be driving our audiences to a paywall or making sure that, we're converting them to some sort of commerce funnel. Unfortunately, editors, it was a little bit church and state, with a big publishing company in the past, and that's sort of had to diverge because of the need to be profitable and the two different sides of the business needing to work much more closely together. So, as we head into 2018, there will be stringent, KPIs on editors the same way that any sort of sales executive would have a number on their head or sales velocity numbers that they're beating against every single day.
So church and state, is that still a thing in your newsrooms and your operations? Is there a wall, and if so, how high is the wall?
Well, coming from a print background, it's never been anywhere near as high on the digital side, and now it's getting really interesting as to how it works. Let me give you 2 examples. At Kiplinger, we give trusted financial advice on any number of topics, and what we are doing now is we're developing a network of advisors, financial advisors, who provide the same sort of sophisticated analysis that we do. We edit them, we vet them, we edit them. If they say put your money in an offshore bank in order to hide it, we say no, you're not going to say that on Kiplinger. Sorry, we should have vetted that. They are primarily registered investment advisors, meaning that they have a fiduciary standard, meaning that they must put the interests of their clients first, and we try to get insights from these folks, editing them, and posting them on our site with an opportunity to contact them if you want, but they are fully vetted by Kiplinger. And now, this was somewhat controversial at Kiplinger because we have a very trusted brand. Our brand is everything to us. And yet we are, by providing more content, providing more stories like this, we get a very, very high CPM from our secret sauce, and we have a secret sauce at Kiplinger, and that is we have advertisers, blue chip advertisers, folks that everybody wants, the Fidelities and the Vanguards and the T. Rowe Prices and the Charles Schwabs of the world that look at our audience and say, I want to reach those folks. That is the perfect audience for us. That's our secret sauce at Kiplinger. Let me give you one other thing that we're doing too. That is, I don't know if it lowers the wall, but it makes the wall look a lot different. Another thing we do is affiliatization. We haven't even talked about affiliatization yet, but we are now, for example, we have every year we do a best online brokers. And this year, Fidelity and Schwab happen to be the picks of the editorial team. And what we have done is we have compiled a list of the best online brokers for you. And because we are all about advice you can act upon and benefit from doing so, with viewing of these best best online brokers, you can go to those sites and you can sign up for accounts. We think that's fine because we have vetted this. It's been completely vetted by editorial, and these are Kiplinger picks, and we feel very comfortable affiliatizing that opportunity because we're all about advice you can act on. It also extends all the way to, we just did a deal with Hotels.com. I just provided Hotels.com solstice, not the solstice. What was it? What was
Eclipse.
The eclipse. Who could forget? The solar eclipse. Hotels.com had a list of all the best, really good rates on hotels all the way across the country where the eclipse was happening. We had no problem with that at all, and we said these were not Kiplinger picks. We said this is not us. We made it quite clear, very transparent, that this was not us. But we are increasingly getting into that. We're starting from a very small base, but this part of our business is growing very rapidly.
Anyone want to pick up the affiliation?
Yeah,
Michael, you talk about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's one of the sort of real growing areas of revenue for us. What we ended up doing, we initially tried a few years ago to just sort of take articles that the editorial team was doing and put affiliate links on them. And we found that worked okay, but it was not a huge opportunity. And then last year, starting kind of end of Q1, we started doing a real concerted experiment to have the folks who edit the strategist section in the magazine, which is product recommendations basically, do posts on the website that were really focused on, here's some things we think are great, and if you click, you can buy them. And that worked out really, really well for us. We learned a tremendous amount about what kinds of recommendations work best. You know, is it lists? Is it sort of single products? You know, is it sort of editor passion-driven stuff, or is it more sort of comprehensive? Anyway, we learned a tremendous amount, and by the middle of last year, it was clear that this should be a sort of new piece of the business. And so last October, we launched it as kind of a site within a site on nymag.com. And that's been a real success story for us in terms of audience growth and revenue growth of that channel. The thing that's been absolutely key, though, is looking at data, paying attention to data, feeding that back to the editorial team. And ultimately, one of the things that we realized is we had to have an end-to-end view of that transaction as much as possible. And so
what does that mean, Michael? An end-to-end view.
So if we have content promoted on Facebook, whether it's organic promotion or paid promotion, tracking that all the way through from Facebook to landing on our website to then clicking through onto Amazon or one of our other affiliate partners, and knowing that that particular transaction happened, or at least that we can't track it down to a single transaction level, but we can track it down to aggregate activity for a particular product tied back to a particular article. And so wiring that up was not easy. We worked with a company called Switchboard to make all those connections for us. They handle all of the sort of data flow stuff that you don't want to worry about, like making sure that the data is going into the database so you can run queries against it and match everything up. But having that complete picture of the data and then being able to feed that back to the editorial and marketing team to say, this is what is working, this is what's not working, that was key to the success of that business.
Christine, you've talked about your new data product you're working on. Can you tell us about what that is?
Yeah, I can quickly touch on the content to commerce as well. We have an integrated model of, sellers and, editors and writers. And, we've seen success lie in having, product specialists or editorial commerce writers that are really focused on the sites that are most propense to consume that kind of content and then convert and pay for whatever product they're looking at. So we've recently sort of accelerated that by creating different hubs of teams within the core 5 brands that we saw opportunities. And we've, in the first 3-4 months, seen significant growth on, our content to commerce strategy. On the data side, yeah, we use data for everything. We've recently built out all of our data capabilities, and our core platform is called Spire, which we continue to then, put specific products, categories, specific like pharma or, an auto or CPG into that, layering on all of our first-party content and audience data with third-party transactional data, whether it's through IMS and health conditions or Jump Shot and the auto data. And then, we have a product that ultimately looks at the highest propensity to purchase those kinds of products, and we continuously optimize through the life of a campaign to get, results at the end and proven ROI.
So finish that thought for me. If you run this analysis and you find there's an opportunity over here, does that then go to the newsroom, and the newsroom is sort of posed with how do you sort of answer that question for consumers, or?
No, it's based on, the content that's already published. It's based on the audiences that are already consuming the content across our sites. The nice thing is that, again, we have 22 sites, and where you think you would want to contextually align with, a brand or some of our content may not actually be where, your brand resonates or that product resonates. So, we're seeing success in a lot of places that, our advertisers wouldn't have thought that their brand would or their product would have been consumed and then ultimately purchased. So there's a lot of key learnings and insights throughout the campaign that they're getting that they can then use throughout the life cycle of whether they're launching a product or trying to accelerate a product, and then ultimately by the end there's ROI attached to that campaign.
Dan, you talked earlier about having a lot of data, and most of that data is weather, location data. Talk about how you guys are using that, and particularly on the branded content side.
Yeah, so we obviously are producing a lot of data every day. We're getting data from our users, whether that be their location, so we have that information. We have what they're interested in. They may be looking at a health forecast or what's pollen related or asthma. They may look at a golf forecast and things like that. So we're using all of that information and then doing two things. One, hopefully driving relevant content back to them, so suggesting other content that's more relevant for them, and then actually using it with our ad partners to deliver relevant advertising. I think if you're looking at a golf forecast for Myrtle Beach, you're most likely, it's not that hard to figure out that you're interested in golf products. So being able to provide that relevant both content and advertising has been something we're moving more towards. In the past, we've used a lot of this data to help our partners do some of these things, and now certainly looking to enhance that for us as well.
Can you talk maybe about a specific version of that?
Yeah, so I guess one example recently, obviously with the hurricanes that have been happening, sits around certain advertisers have products that can either help you prepare for a hurricane, or if they, after that occurs, what do they do? And so ServPro is somebody that we've worked with that is able to, from the beginning, we're giving them some hurricane preparedness tips. We're helping them create videos with their content in it, and then these are helping the consumers better understand what they can do to be prepared for the hurricane. So it's getting ServPro's message out, and then also providing relevant information for people that are in those circumstances.
Doug, anything for you from a data standpoint that's really stands out to what you guys are working on?
Well, emails. Can I just talk about emails for a second? Because we've had some great success this year, and we're going to continue to do this. We fundamentally redesigned our daily email, Kiplinger Today, and we launched 3 new email alerts, one for retirement, one for investing, one for wealth creation. With this strategy, we're collecting email addresses. This is engagement with our core audience, and we are monetizing it from 2 different directions. One is what we put in there is the stuff that advertisers want to be against to reach our core audience. These are topics that are all of great concern, so we can charge a very high CPM for everyone who comes back to our site. But at the same time, and I'll credit Axios with this, because I think Axios, if you're not following Axios, I think you should. It's a very innovative company out of Washington. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. And what they're doing is it's sort of the model of a message from a message from an advertiser, and then it is embedded in the email itself, which is very text-rich, very rich, nice art, nice text, and then a message from an advertiser, which performs very well. And as a result of this tactic, we're seeing revenues in the high six figures that we weren't seeing last year. So this has been a good success story for us.
Let's talk briefly now about events. This is, events aren't new, but are you in your organizations placing new emphasis on it? Are you looking at them differently? Christina, I know we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. We recently acquired Pop to Life, which is, a production creative company that ultimately can accelerate all of those capabilities for us, which is really our strategy across the board. Where we don't have capabilities, we plug them in, or where we don't have specific audiences, like a Pitchfork and a music enthused audience, we're acquiring them and plugging them into our portfolio. Our brands are well known for the splashy events like the Vanity Fair Oscar Party or the Met Gala. There's a lot more that can be done across cross-brand events, client-specific events, or just amplifying the existing ones that we have to make them more profitable. So we're really focused on, minimum profit margins and specific criteria for us to actually put the resources against an event moving forward.
So you're saying to do an event, it has to make a certain amount of money, or you just don't?
Yeah, it's less about the halo effect. It's more about making sure that you have that alongside a specific profit margin.
Michael, what about you guys?
Yeah, we are in the process of expanding our events portfolio. The way that we're thinking about it is there are essentially sort of two flavors of events. One is the events that are done more in support of a particular advertiser initiative. So it may be part of an overall package. Certainly we're focused on making sure that that event itself makes money, that we're not sort of losing money on it or cutting into our kind of media sales margins. But that's sort of one category of event. The other category of event are really sort of more consumer-facing events that are really tapping into other budgets, so sponsorship budgets, experiential budgets, and it's a different kind of relationship. Those are longer lead sales cycles, and hopefully also multi-year relationships. So bringing on a sponsor not just for sort of 1 year of the Vulture Festival, but for multiple years of the Vulture Festival. And so we're finding that there are really sort of two different sets of clients or agencies that we're calling on, different kinds of relationships, and broadly, sort of how do we build out that second kind of event, which also has dual revenue streams, so consumer revenue as well as sponsorship revenue. So two pretty different businesses, one tied into kind of traditional media business and, sort of almost back to the old days of publisher merchandising, and then the other really building a new business.
Okay, we're going to take some questions from the audience, so be prepared. But one quick thing, we've made it this long without talking about Facebook or the platforms, and I just wanted to get your kind of big high-level thoughts about how are you thinking about those in your organizations? Are they friends? Are they foes? Are they both? Frenemies? What?
Definitely both. We're spending a lot more on paid acquisition on Facebook than we did last year. We're also seeing large growth in organic. We have to work with that. I think this whole conference will focus on this, but to what extent do you make sure that the folks who do click on that content are eagles, not crows, that is, just come through once and eat the corn and leave. That we are trying to reach our core audience, and we're finding, if you look, and this is one of the problems that we're all facing, and why we're all wondering about the death of advertising models, which is, 85% of all news advertising spending over the last 3 years have gone to Facebook and Google, and Amazon is right behind them, whoa.
Does anybody know that number, actually? Does anybody have it?
Last year was,
85?
yeah, between 80 and 85% of the growth went to Facebook
Growth.
and Google.
Yeah, growth.
And their share is something like 65% between them of the total digital ad revenue.
I suspect you all saw, but Franklin Foer, the former editor of the New Republic, I believe he was talking to Neiman Labs this week or last week, and he said, we got to get away, publishers have got to get away from this relationship with the platforms or change it altogether. Is that possible?
No, I don't think that's possible. I mean,
He's written a book on this topic, so he sort of has a particular point of view.
But do you buy it?
no, I think you ultimately need to lean in. They will continue to take more of the share and have better audience and data capabilities and reach and audience size. But ultimately, we use them as a core traffic driver that continues to be one of our biggest levers. Branded content and social revenue are also highly driven from Facebook and Instagram. Instagram we do really well on because we're a highly visual company. And then, we've had extreme success in our paywall for the New Yorker. So they are a big channel for us in, getting subscribers, specifically because of the audience data that we have through CitizenNet, a company that we acquired that has, over 800 million social profiles stored, and making sure that we're targeting the right people at the lowest cost and highest performance.
Yeah, so we're almost the same. We will use that to drive traffic back to our monetized platforms, but we'll also create content specifically for them. So we won't it won't be exclusively just okay, get a little bit here and then click through. But we will create content designed specifically for Facebook, and some of that could be even some of our 360 content. You can use their platform. YouTube has that ability too. So I guess both is a cop-out answer of
Frenemies.
sorts. Yeah,
Everybody agrees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just add, you sort of have to go in eyes wide open and understand what they are, what they can do, and also make sure that you're not getting distracted by the things that they are pushing you into that may or may not be good for your core business.
Well said. Okay, questions? Steve, we got some time?
Yeah, yep, we do.
Don't be shy. Yes, sir.
Hang on.
People at home, just tell us who you are, where you're from.
Of course. Hi, Mort Greenberg, Military Times. Question for Christine. You had mentioned KPIs for the editors. In priority order, if you could, sort of what are the 2 or 3 big KPIs outside of, I guess, just raw page views?
And as a
Thank you.
follow-up, how did they react to their KPIs?
They don't know about them yet.
Okay, breaking news.
It's really, engagement. Engagement is, what we focus on for, advertising in our core audience to make sure that they're monetizable and they're growing our page views ultimately. But we do have, besides the New Yorker, many different brands that we're focused on a paywall strategy or some sort of consumer-based strategy. So engagement is key to making sure that we have the right audiences on our platforms. I think it's, with a company like Condé Nast, it's 100+ years old, that has integrated teams across both, advertising and the edit side. There's a lot of change management. There's different ways of doing business, but it's ultimately how you stay, vital within this changing marketplace. KPIs are critical to success. When my boss took the seat of Chief Digital Officer 3 years ago, he immediately instituted KPIs across all of the digital staff. And we've seen, over 40% growth during that time period of our core audience. Ultimately, it drives results. If somebody's looking at a number every day and the right number, they will beat towards that drum.
It's like a Fitbit for editors. Could I ask you guys to address the famed pivot to video move? A number of companies, including this morning, Complex, have announced that they have made substantial cuts to their editorial team in focusing more on video investment. That seems to be a radical business decision. And I'm curious what you guys think of it and where video fits into your broader strategy.
Yeah, this is the famous pivot to declining page views strategy.
Yeah. So from our perspective, we're growing it. I don't think you could look at but weather is a visual product. So I think capturing video, whether it be studio driven or out in one of the events, we've got storm chasers, we have reporters that go around and cover these events. So for us, video is important. It's something we're continuing to grow that side of the house, and whether that be flat content or even 360, because again, just the product that we're covering of sorts is an extremely visual and compelling product to see in video. And not everybody can be in a snowstorm or a
But
hurricane or a
the three
tornado.
others on the panel are all have legacies in text. And I'm curious how it's playing within the organization and within your investment.
We've invested more in video over the past couple of years, but I'd say we're still in the sort of experimentation mode to try and figure out what works, both from a content sort of brand voice point of view and from an audience point of view. It's very hard to drive video views on a website that is primarily about reading content. And the users have not pivoted to video in the way that, say, the advertisers and the publishers have pivoted to video.
They didn't get the memo about that?
Yeah, they did not get that memo.
And if that's hard, if your readers like to read about finance, it's like, I'll bet it's twice as hard as it is at New York Magazine. We charged up this hill twice and came back down. Our readers don't look at video; they don't expect it from us. It's great if you're doing sports, or you're doing NASCAR crack-ups, or you're doing recipes, foods.
Cats.
Excuse me?
Cats.
Cats, yeah, sure. Turtles, animals, sure. But if you're personal finance ranks really, really low down there. And not only that, our advertisers don't like it either. They really, again, we have that's our secret sauce, but our secret sauce on that side, they're not so keen to pay premium dollar for videos that we do. All the revenue that we get out of that would be programmatic.
Yeah, I mean, I think same struggle. Really, we're highly reader-based across most of our titles. You have like GQ and Pitchfork that can sort of lead more so with video than article kind of content. But the reality is you really need to train, again, the editors to start with video and then write around that, or start with a great piece and then create a video against that. Because if it's not contextually relevant, it shouldn't be living within our O&O. We can definitely grow our O&O, video views as a share, but I think it will cap out. Really, where consumers are getting their video is YouTube. So you need to make sure that your YouTube channel is growing, because that's where the majority of your video views are going to happen, both now and in the future.
There's a really good piece in Columbia Journalism Review. I think it's this month on the pivot to video. It mocks it, but it is nonetheless, I think, a very substantive discussion of some of the problems that have developed. What is it, Mike? Is it MIC? Yeah. For millennials, they pivoted to video big time, and they just laid off like a huge amount of their editorial staff.
What you said was really interesting, because I think some of that is they're responding to advertisers who say they want the inventory.
Yes.
Where you don't seem to have that problem. Your advertisers aren't like, where's my pre-roll?
Right. So we don't have that. We don't have that pressure. Actually, the pressure was there. We thought this was the next big thing. There were a lot of people. We were discussing the next big thing. For us, I don't think it's the next big thing.
I think there's always a balance. When you chase the dollars, that's when your consumers start to fall off, and you need to stay core to what you are as a brand.
Exactly. Yes.
Yep. Let's do one more. Back over here.
Hi, this is Jay Kuo from the Social Edge in New York City. And we started investing in video about a year ago, and only were recently admitted into the Facebook monetization program. And I wanted to see if you guys have any experience within that program and if what sorts of CPMs you're estimating on those mid-roll advertisements.
Who's on the Facebook video train here?
So we're one of the watch partners. So Facebook is essentially paying us an upfront guarantee. The ad revenue that we're seeing outside of that guarantee is very low.
Yeah, I think mid-roll is ultimately something that needs to be changed with, consumers for them to see a break, and that experience isn't necessarily great, and advertisers don't want to be aligned with a bad experience for consumers either. So we're also part of the testing phase, and there's a lot of learnings to be had.
Is mid-roll?
What does everybody think of mid-roll? I'd really like to see. Does anyone
better
find
or
it as
worse?
annoying as I do? I guess not. I guess I'm in the minority. Okay.
A what percent drop off? So you see 7 to 8% drop after the mid-roll. Well, that's,
Oh, well, okay. Well, that's good. That's great.
okay, well, this brings
We
us
are-
back. Sorry, Steve.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to take up in the roundtable that Tim will be leading from this very panel. Tim, panel, thanks very much for kicking us off.
Thank you, everyone.